So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, we've got a great guest. It's a first for the show. We normally have just straight actors, but this week we've got a legend in the house. This man has voiced over 250 characters, has got over 2,000 credits to his name, winner of a Daytime Emmy, 3 Annie Awards, a Peabody, and is just an outright legend. It's, of course, Rob Paulsen. Rob, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, Gad, Brian, you sound like an awful lot of my friends from across the pond. It's quite remarkable, really. No.
Do you know what is fantastic? Is that, you know, laughter and happiness is such a wonderful thing. And when we listen to your work and your voices, it just literally lifts those clouds and it just brings out happiness. So I've got to thank you for that before we start talking about your wonderful career, because what you've done over the years, you've not only molded, my childhood, my girls' childhood, because they absolutely love you, but, you know, everyone's around the world, and you're continuing to do, you know, great things, which I think is fantastic.
Well, it is fantastic. And it's fantastic because I'm allowed to continue this wonderful job that I've been so fortunate to be a part of. I thank you. I truly don't know how to adequately thank you for such a profound compliment, especially when you included your sweet children in the context. You are 100% correct, Brian. Laughter, joy, kindness is utterly sort of has nothing to do with age, race, finances, language, even. And so to be in a position now where all I have to do is say, "Hello, Brian," look what happens to your face. It's fantastic. And I would submit there are probably many people watching to whom the same thing would happen. It is I who is the lottery winner. The only person who gets a bigger kick out of what you just did than you is me. And I get to see it all the time. So I don't even know how to adequately describe how grateful I feel. And to be able to do this as I get older and nobody cares what I look like is a remarkable thing in a business that is often geared around, how perfect you look.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't draw, I don't write them, but it doesn't matter. The collaboration turns out that it produces something that is, if it works right, is iconic, timeless, and there will be people maybe 100 years from now, when you and I are both dust, who may watch this and still get a jolt of laughter out of it. That is remarkable.
Definitely, it's all about putting that stamp. I think throughout life, no matter what job we do, what life we live, you know, it's about leaving the world a better place than when you. And that isn't from me. That is from Christopher Reeve, who's my all-time idol. He's my Superman, and I wrote to his son Will Reeve to say, you know, how passionate I was about Superman and what he taught him as a parent, and that was what he said: you leave the world a better place, and
Exactly.
and you're definitely going to do that with all your amazing voices and work. So let's discover how you got into this business, because how does someone that wanted to be a hockey player get into the industry of voice work?
Yeah, well, you just go to the cartoon voice shop out here on Hollywood Boulevard and you fill out an application and they call you. Well, firstly, you're right. I still have my Detroit Red Wings hat on. To this day, I'm such a fan of the Red Wings that when I cut myself, I bleed red, just like the Red Wings. So I'm really a fan. Brian, in my case, I came to LA in 1978, almost 44 years ago. Wow. To ostensibly to do what most folks do when they come here, who are performers. In my case, I was a singer who became an actor and did a lot of theater. I was I determined it was my time to jump in the big kids pool. And so I drove out here from Michigan in my little Honda and packed it full of my stuff. And my mom really did stand on the front porch in tears in her bathrobe. Um, and I came here ostensibly to do live action, and that's what I was doing. I was doing music, singing in clubs, producing demos with songwriting partners, a lot of on-camera commercials for the usual suspects: McDonald's, Ford, Chevy, Levi's, you name it, and episodic television. In those days, it was MacGyver, St. Elsewhere, Hill Street Blues, Love American Style, half a dozen movies, uh, and beginning to make my living solely from my acting. This was probably about 3, 4 years after I got here. Still doing odd jobs to survive, but when I say make a living, it was a better quality of ramen, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but hey, no pity needed here. It was my choice, absolutely my choice.
Mm.
So when it went south and when it was difficult, I didn't expect pity. It
Yeah.
was a choice.
Yeah.
Um, so about the mid 80s, 85, 84, 85, I was asked to audition for animation roles. And of course, I jumped at it.
Mm.
Even though that was not the reason I came here, I want to work. Acting is acting, whether it's
Mm.
your voice, your body, whatever, it's performance. Um, and so it turns out that I, Brian, was able to literally live that axiom that luck is when opportunity meets preparation. Even though, young Rob, when I was imitating Elvis Presley and trying to riff my own characters and do things because they just made my soul happy, little did I know that my influences, the Pythons, Peter Sellers, the Goons, Jonathan Winters, Carol Burnett, all of those folks were inspiring me to do things with my friends that just made us happy.
Yeah.
Little did I know that in my early 30s, that would prepare me for this uh, opportunity. And so I jumped in. I had a ball. And the first thing that I noticed when I was in my first animated recording sessions, which were G.I. Joe and Transformers, and we know what happened with them. We didn't know that at the time.
Mm.
But the one thing I noticed immediately uh, as a young actor who was virtually always uh, an audition was offered based on my look. It's always the way it goes. It's
Mm.
just the nature of the beast. But to be in a session where there were people I recognized from episodic television growing up who were utterly unlimited by the way they looked, or rather that they were not limited. That they were doing things and creating characters with their voice that was nothing like what they were known for.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh man, this this is the gig. Um, and so while I was not interested in uh, eschewing on camera stuff, I told my agent, man, throw me in for as many of these as you can because it literally is like being a little kid. You're just
Yeah.
playing limited by your imagination. That's it. In fact, they encourage it to just be wacky and bizarre and not be self conscious. Um, and I made the right choice because at that age, as an average looking Caucasian boy from Michigan, I was not limited by my look. And now, as a old man, an old Caucasian man who's uh, been in LA longer than Michigan, but I'm still not limited the way I look. If I can start talking like Carl Weezer all day long, it just makes everybody happy or maybe throw up. I don't know, but definitely gets a reaction, Brian.
It certainly does. It certainly does. And what did your family think of your direction? So you go out to be an actor and do that, but then you decide then to go into voice work. I mean, what was your family's, reaction to that?
You getting paid? Yes, we're in. You know,
Yeah.
um, and from a practical and a sort of personal sense. My parents, I'm the oldest sibling in my family, and I clearly remember uh, the day that I told my folks after a year of college that I was wasting their money and my time. And and they were always very supportive of I and my siblings doing, or me and my siblings doing the theater and music and sports and all that, uh,
Mm.
as long as we did our studies, and we did. However, they sort of created a monster with respect to me. And after a year at college, I came home and I said, "I'm wasting your money and my time. I really, really want to be in the moving picture business, and I I understand what that means. I understand that the money that's following me to Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the University of Michigan, that gravy train dries up, uh, and I understand that you are not beholden, mom and dad, to send me any money to keep me living.
Mm.
I'm You have given me, if nothing else, a profound sense of personal responsibility. I was very aware that I was going to be on my own financially, not emotionally. My parents loved us; they supported us, but they couldn't afford to start sending money to me
Mm.
when there are three other kids coming up, all of whom probably wanted to go to college, and they did. So it was not met with open arms and glee, but it was met with, well, there's always a room here. If you change your mind, we would prefer that you finish school. But I said, I understand that. And I reserve the right to do that, but I think I'm in. And for me, it was the right decision because in my case, I preferred having the practical experience that would, I believe, help me more than, say, getting a degree in
Mm.
music. Um, that is not at all to let folks know that they shouldn't go to school. Everybody is
Yeah.
different. You know, I am a lottery winner and I know it. I had no plan B. Uh, my route to success was my route. It's different for everyone. I think partially I was a little naive, but that was a good thing in my case. Had I been very aware of what it costs to live here, and it's way more expensive now, all of that, um, it might have dissuaded me a bit. But when I got here and I was in, and my car broke, and I'm a big gearhead, and I learned how to fix it to keep it running. The air conditioner was break. I learned how to, all of that stuff. Um, Necessity is totally the mother of invention, and I figured it out, and I'm grateful that I did. Um, so once I started making a living, I think my parents breathed a sigh of relief, and I totally get that. My son is grown now.
Mm.
I always hate it for him and his wife when things are lean. You don't want your kids to struggle in any way,
No.
even if it's teaching them a lesson.
Yeah.
Um, and so when my parents came out to visit after we bought a home, and my dad's like, "Wow, this is a nice crib." I said, "Yeah, not bad, huh? And you go to work dressed like that, like I am now?" I said, "Yep." "And you're a car nut. That's a nice car." I said, "Yep. I'm a blue collar worker in the Dream Factory. I'm not a movie star, but there's a huge number of actors between folks on the down low eating out of a trash can and Brad Pitt. There are people like me." So obviously, in terms of a personal aspect with respect to my wife and son, when I started making some nice dough, that was very helpful as well. Um, so there are practical aspects to any artistic endeavor, which
Mm.
make it a little more tricky. Um, because if you're driven to perform and you can't imagine your life without it, but you got to eat. And if you continue to miss your mortgage payments, your wife may say, "Honey, I can't do this." That's a
Mm.
practical problem in the context of art. And it has been that way since art began,
Mm.
So uh, walking that line and finding a way to make a living doing what you would do for free is often very challenging. Um, I found a way to do it like many others, but I can also tell you people whom I have utter respect for in terms of their character and also their prodigious skill.
Mm.
Just could not get over that hump. Just could not ever have more than 1 or 2 years in a row where they could make a living, and it has nothing to do with their skill.
Mm.
It is just the nature of the beast. So while I take my work seriously, I don't take myself that seriously because I realize there are components that have nothing to do with my skill. Uh,
Mm.
but what I am very good at is knowing when I've got a great opportunity and not blowing it.
Mm.
And that's what I think. I've had more than my share of lucky opportunities, but to take those opportunities and turn them into a steady job is where I think I've become strong and learned from my failures.
I think it's amazing. And they say that everyone has a voice, but what makes for a good, you know, voice
Yeah,
actor?
great question. Well, you you answered about half of it. It is voice acting, small v, large A. It's about acting. Acting is acting. Whether you do it, whether you're Yakko or Raphael or Donatello or Carl or Pinky or you name it, Bart or Mickey or Goofy or Rick or Morty, it is about acting. Um, the difference, obviously, is that the artists act with their pencils or their computer renderings. And without a great script and the melding of a cool visual with my work um, is often timeless.
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny is 80 years old, and
Mm.
people are watching Bugs right now on YouTube and DVDs or wherever else they're being offered, and they're
Mm.
laughing at kill the wabbit, and they don't know anything about Wagner or the Ride of the Valkyries. They just know that Bugs Bunny is singing this crazy opera. Um,
Yeah.
and timeless. All the people who contributed to the success of Bugs Bunny initially are gone. It doesn't
Mm.
matter.
Mm.
Um, Execution at a high level ren- uh, renders great results. And
Mm.
so that is the one thing I let folks know all the time is that it's about acting, study improv. Um, I am good at my job because I'm a good actor. I ought to
Mm.
be. I've been doing it for 40 years. Well, 50
Yeah.
if you take the time that I wasn't getting paid for it. Um, and but it is a deeply collaborative effort. People don't wait for the next Rob Paulsen cartoon, and that's fine. If I'm in it uh, and I am given a wonderful script with talented artists and wonderful producers, then often it ends up being a show like Animaniacs, which is now enjoying huge success
Mm.
again with a brand new iteration with Steven Spielberg uh, with an exponentially larger audience. So that
Mm.
tells me that the first go around was not an accident. It deserved being called um, maybe iconic now because it's a quarter century later, but I don't think that was faint praise. I think it's really a good show. And the fact that the new cast of writers with the old actors and Mr. Spielberg uh, were influenced so deeply by the first go around that they utterly get the ethos is reflected in how successful the show is. It's really big again. And
And and
boy, what a,
and how was it to go? You know, obviously
oh,
you voiced the originals, and then to go back to this recarnation, this
oh my God.
revival of the show. How was it to go back and to voice those characters again?
Well, clearly I was aptly cast as Yakko because I haven't shut up since you were nice enough to have me on the show. But this is where I become a bit speechless because
Yeah.
uh, how do I explain the best feeling in the world work wise? And I can explain it in the following way. Um, there was an episode of Animaniacs during the first batch in which everybody who was anybody in the Hollywood animation realm was at a particular session. I think it was a two-part episode that was like the Warner Brothers 65th reunion special. Very funny, lots of music, but we had a lot of parts, a lot of small parts, no small actors.
Mhm.
But everybody was there, including a lot of celebrity talent. One of your countrymen, Carrie Elwes, was there playing Romeo. Uh, Another wonderful, beautiful actress, Olivia Hussey, was playing Juliet, which she played in the 1968 version that was directed by Franco Zeffirelli. So anyway, there are a lot of world-class talent. And as I did every episode, I sat next to Tress MacNeille, my dear sweet friend who is Dot, my sister Dot, and I grabbed her hand. We had so many actors that we were playing musical microphones. And so I took Tress's hand and I said, "Boy, honey, take a picture of this." Is like 1996, 97. I said,
Mhm.
"Take a picture of this because unless you're on The Simpsons, it just doesn't get any better." We have Tom Ruger, who created the show On the Other Side of the Glass, Andrea Romano, who won 9 Emmys for her directing the episodes, Steven Spielberg running the show, full orchestra. I mean, it just did not get any
Mm.
better in Hollywood with the best of the best. And and I said, this don't get no better. Okay, cut to 25 years later. We'd gone through the machinations. We'd gotten the contract. We went through, years of stopping and starting, and I think we're good to go. Steven's going to do something else. Let's wait. Okay, blah blah blah. We're ready to go. First episode of the new batch a couple of years ago when we started recording them, and I sat next to Tress and I took her hand and I said, "Sweetheart, do you remember when I said?" And she stopped me. She took off her glasses and she said that it doesn't get any better. It does, doesn't it? And I almost got tearful. And she was right. It did get better. There's a wonderful love song, old love song called "The Second Time Around," and the it's about things don't work out the first time and get your heart broken, but then you meet the right one, and it's better the second time around. And the lyric in the chorus is, "There are those who will bet love comes but once, and yet I'm oh so glad we met the second time around." And I got to tell you, that is precisely what happened with Animaniacs. To get to do it again with people who have been there for the birth of my son, the deaths of my parents, vice versa, we're
Mhm.
people who are involved in our lives so deeply, way beyond our work. And to get to do it again with Tress and Maurice and Jess Harnell, with the king of Hollywood, Mr. Spielberg is now, what, 73 years old? And we're doing it again. Eh, That's how powerful it was. For Tress to have not forgotten when I
Mm.
said it 25 years before, and she called it up and said, "It does get better, doesn't it?" I said, "Oh my God." And it is. It's the audience is huge, Brian, some of which are 8 or 9, some
Yeah.
of which are 10 years older than I. It's
Yeah.
crazy cool.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, thing is, when you mention Animaniacs, you can't say it without singing it. You know what I mean? The
I
Animaniacs,
totally.
and literally, it's ingrained in us, which I think is just wonderful, and seeing my kids watch it as well, because us as
Oh,
parents, we always want to flood our
yes.
kids with what we loved, so like the Goonies and films like that, and then the cartoons, and I just think it's fantastic to see their eyes light up. My 3-year-old Cara, she's absolutely just at the screen. I think it's fantastic. I really, really do. But talking about obviously people, enjoying it now, and then
Mhm.
you've got people like myself that enjoyed it when I was younger. How has the profession changed over the years from when you was a voice actor back when you were starting out to now? With COVID as well, I can imagine
Mhm.
that the last year it's been flooded with a lot of actors that have decided to get into the voice work because everything's drying up and productions are stopping. So, what would you say was the biggest difference from when you were starting out to now within the
I
industry?
think, great question. I think first and foremost is the sheer volume of animated entertainment that's being produced. Um, when I came to LA, Saturday morning was pretty much the only realm for cartoons, at least in the US. It was a big deal. It's part of popular culture, at least in our country, to watch Saturday morning cartoons in your pajamas, often with your parents in a family bed. You spill cereal on the floor, it doesn't matter because you're saying cowabunga or, what's up, Doc, or yabba
Yeah.
or Um, and so the amount of product available was much smaller than it is now. Um, and so the opportunity to have brand new platforms, Animaniacs is on Hulu in our country. I'm not sure if or where it's playing on your side, but um, it is a platform that was not even thought of when the
No.
original show was produced. So I have, in the last 4 or 5 years, I worked on, I don't know, 6 or 7 shows that have been on Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Apple, that Disney Plus, HBO Max, um, that that I've had no um, that would not have been part of the situation when I first started. So that
Mm.
is both the sheer volume of animated product and the methods by which we all consume it uh, is a total sea change. And I believe that we specifically, well, everybody, the creators and the consumers, have a better experience. We get more opportunity. We get more
Mm.
opportunity to create and perform, and we get more choices. Um, Technically, you and I are communicating in a way that is virtually instantaneous, a little bit of a
Mm.
delay, but nothing that's off-putting. But I'm able to work from home during COVID with
Mm.
a fairly rudimentary setup, but I'm not missing a paycheck. Uh, that has changed a lot. I always prefer being in the studio with the other actors because they make me better. It's a
Mm.
blast from a personal standpoint, just working with all these really crazy gifted actors. But from a practical standpoint, it makes me better. It makes the project better. So I miss that, but I'm still able to make my mortgage payments because I can work from home. And it didn't take long when things got shut down for Warner Brothers and Disney and Universal and the people with whom I work on a regular basis to figure it out.
Mm.
So that is remarkable. The influx of celebrity talent to do the talking dragon in the next Pixar movie, that's something that really wasn't a huge uh, part of the deal when I was a kid.
Mm.
Occasionally, you'd see animated versions of famous movie stars, but they would be playing themselves, like what you'd see on The Simpsons. Mark Hamill's a dear friend, but the only way Mark could get on The Simpsons was by playing himself. Although he's a marvelous actor, and he was the voice of the Joker for 20
Mm.
years. And to a lot of people your age, he is the definitive Joker. Kevin
Yep.
Conroy, the definitive Batman. Um,
Yep.
but now we have a lot of celebrities doing animated projects. Ryan Reynolds, whom I love as an actor, was Sonic the Hedgehog last year or the year before. Um, and I'm not an actor who has a problem with that. There are actors who kind of go, Jesus, man, don't you have enough? Well, I don't look at it that way. I look at it as a
Mm.
choice from the producer. If Brian Garner has $1 million in his production budget and he just says, I want Jennifer Garner to be the beautiful princess in my rendition of an animated version of Rapunzel, I want her. I like what she's about. And the other side of the coin is she's really well known and she has no problem getting on Graham Norton or wherever to talk about it and promote it.
Yep.
But unless you got a great script and wonderful people to help execute your vision, you could have Jesus in the part and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
And so I have no problem with a producer deciding to use a celebrity. It is a lot different than it used to be. And I feel that as a non celebrity talent that doesn't have a a lot of name recognition. My job is to be so good that I make Brian go, if I hire Rob Paulsen to be the handsome prince, I'm going to get 4 or 5 other creatures out of him, and I can pay him still a nice living, but not even close to what I'd have to pay a movie star. And I'd be happy to do it.
Yeah.
So would Eric Bauza, so would John DiMaggio, so would Jess Harnell. You see my point.
Yeah.
So instead of belly aching about how come, geez, David Tennant's a wonderful actor, but really? He's going to be on Ninja Turtles? Come on. I'm like, great. Bring David on. I'm a huge fan. I can't wait to meet him. That's not my issue. I just got to continue to get better and better and better. And maybe someday, nice people like Brian in my corner, maybe I will become a little more recognizable, and I am. But it's because I've been around for so long, and I've gotten to work on really wonderful projects that end up drawing attention to me. So those are the ways in which it's really changed my contribution to the project. My process has not changed at all. I create, I listen, I learn in the same way that I always have. Just because there are technical issues that have changed, or an influx of celebrity talent and money, and the fact that Pixar movies often outpace live action movies a lot. It's pretty cool. There's now an Oscar category for animation that wasn't around. So it's a good time to be a voice guy or voice girl. It's a pretty cool.
And you talk about process. Could you talk me through the process that you go through? So if you get given a character, because obviously we can see Yakko there stood right next to you on the screen. So
Isn't he
when
handsome?
yeah, he certainly is. And when you're presented with that character, are you given, what sort of characteristics he has, or is it all down to you to come up with that, and then the animators work from your voice? Or, I mean, if you could explain the process.
Great question. And the short pre-explanation answer is yes, with an asterisk. All of that is true. I am, well, case in point, Yakko. When I was presented with Yakko, 1992, what we generally all do is we're presented with that image. And I'm sorry, that image and various other images, back, side view, back view, happy, sad, all that stuff from the artists, and bits of script so that we can, side, they call them sides, excerpts from the script, to create a character voice. And also we're given a list of attributes that the producers think they want from Yakko, Wacko, and Dot in terms of how they interact with one another. These are 3 siblings, sibling rivalry. Yakko's the oldest of the bunch, kind of a smartass, wisecracker. The script reflects that. So we're given a bunch of different characteristics of the character, and then it is up to me to come up with a bunch of ideas and audition them with the producers on the other side of the glass and the writers. And when it works, even in an audition, if you're the producer and you say, "Oh, Rob, let's do another line 4 there. That really, I think we're starting to get something. Do that again. That last choice you made. Let's try that again. Maybe let's explore that a little more." That is what will happen during the audition. And when you're done, often the producer will say, "Great, I think we're pretty good. You got anything else you want to throw in?" And in my case, I always do, Brian. I have a very solid improv background. And I find that if I can develop a character with the characteristics and traits the writers and producers want and need in that character, and then I can riff as that character without a script, but saying things in the context of the character that Rob wouldn't say, I got something, because it's organic, it's natural, it's authentic. Then we can all help to make the character more fleshed out. But that's why when a producer asks me if he got something else, I say, "Oh yeah," and I do. Does it work all the time? Absolutely not. But that's not the point. The
Mm.
point is that it red flags me. It shows Brian Garner that Rob's really thinking. And you know
Mm.
what? What he did here is probably not right for Yakko, but it might be right for Pinky. It might be right for Dr. Scratch and Sniff, or maybe not. But let's file that away because this guy's really thinking on his feet. So then what happens is that I'll get a call back a couple weeks later. Brian and his casting people go through it and they go, okay, Rob really started to get it here. It's worth exploring. We know more now about what we want. Let's bring Rob back
Mm.
and Trash. You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
in that, in that's why I always have something in my back pocket because I don't know whether that is going to help me get a call back and get another shot, or even if I don't get the job at all, a year down the road, the show might be a hit without me in it, but they're coming up with a new character and I'll get the gig. And then I get 2 or 3 years on the show to cultivate a character that nobody even knew about. So
Mm.
that's how the process goes. Um, After several callbacks, mixing and matching with other actors and seeing how these characters interrelate, uh, then you get the show. And this is where the other part of your question comes into play. Once the show becomes something that is in production, then the writers start to write to fit what Rob, some of the catchphrases or things that Pinky does on his own, or Carl Weezer or Raphael or whatever.
Mm.
People start to write. The writers start to write and create based on the character traits that were not known at the beginning until you start to flesh it out, and they'll start to write for you, and that's when it really really starts to hit on all cylinders. And so all of that comes into play, which
Mm.
was your question. All of that happens, and it happens really beautifully if you have something that can last for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. um, and that's when it really is great because all the animators, all the writers, the musicians, the songwriters on a show like Animaniacs, I got to sing almost in every episode. And the composers can write songs that work beautifully for you in your key, and lyrics that are spot on for the character. So that's how all that works.
It must be so satisfying because obviously you've put your heart and soul into a character, and all of these people behind it. So let's talk about the tool that you have, which is your voice. And I know that singers like Shirley Bassey and Tom Jones have had surgery over the years because of the
Yeah.
strain of the voice. I know people pop some vocal zones and stuff like that. What is your routine to keep your voice supple and ready for recording? And has your voice had any struggles over the years? We will talk about your book because I want to talk about that because I think it's astonishing and fantastic. But the wear and tear of your voice over the years, has it had any wear and tear? And how do you manage your voice now, ready for recording?
Yes. Well, it has, as you can imagine. My background before I really got involved in animation was music, rock and roll primarily. And my parents, as I said, were very supportive, and I and my desire to perform rock and roll music. And they were very smart. They said, look, you can listen to as much Led Zeppelin, Beatles, The Who, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, whatever, as you want, Stones. But you also have to listen to Shostakovich and Prokofiev and Debussy and the Gershwins and Johnny Mercer and Frank Sinatra, Shirley
Mm.
Bassey. Tom Jones was a huge star over here in the 60s and 70s. Um, and because they were very smart, I not only developed a deep love of all kinds of music, but I was inspired to learn to read music. So I
Mm.
read music. Again, I did it because it made my soul happy, and I wanted to know how people like Puccini got Turandot down on paper in the same way that Lennon and McCartney got that stuff down. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
a deeply interesting thing that was hundreds of years old. Uh, and little did I know, again, that learning to read music at 17, 18, 19, 20 years old was going to put me in a really great spot at 35 because Warner Brothers can say, wait a minute, can you read music? Oh, yeah. And you can sing in character? Sure. So you can read music, sing in character, come in here, knock this out in a couple of takes and save us money. Sure. Boom. You're our guy. Um, and that's how that works. But in terms of tearing up my voice, yeah, singing the immigrant song or brown sugar night after night in a smoky bar tears up your voice. But
Yeah.
I'm not a smoker. I was not a pot smoker. I didn't have to be because in a nightclub in those days, you could cut the smoke with a knife. Um, but I knew when it was time to take a break. When
Mm.
I had, as a nightclub act, you pretty much go from you're usually Tuesday through Sunday night. You get Monday off, like a live theater. Monday's dark. So when I had a Monday off, uh, my bandmates were kind enough to not have me into practice.
Mm.
They would practice their chops, and they would depend on me to know the lyrics at the right time and the right key changes, even though I was resting my voice, and it worked. When I got to work in LA, uh, obviously I'd pull out all the stops to get a job, and I was confronted more than once. In fact, it was a project that was a uniquely British one. It was an animated version of an English comic book called Dan Dare, Pilot of the Future.
Yeah.
Um, and it was an all British cast, save for yours truly. It was Greg Ellis, Julian Sands, uh, Tim Curry, um, oh gosh, Julian Holloway, whose father was Stan Holloway, who created the role of Professor Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady in England.
All right.
So all these people are my Clive Revel, wonderful British actors who all became my friends. And Greg, I talked to the other day, and Tim Curry, I think about a year ago.
Mm.
Um, anyway, the character that I auditioned for was a bad guy called the Mekon, and I came up with a soul and a character for the voice, and it required that I squeeze my voice in such a fashion that worked beautifully for the character, but was pretty bloody rough on my vocal cords.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so I did the character and I auditioned for it. And I get a call from my agent going, wow, you blew him away. You're the only uh, colonist in the cast. Congratulations. You get to work with your friends who are all Brits. And I was having a ball. So I got the job. And the first thing I thought of was after I did that audition, Brian, I had a bit of a problem when I went home because I blew my voice out. Not damaged it,
Mm.
but wow. So I got the job. And I thought, well, now what do I do? I certainly want to do it. But what I did is what I tell other young folks to do is go to the producers and say, okay, here's the truth. The truth is that I don't think I can keep this thing up for 2 or 3 hours um, at a time.
Mm.
And it didn't bother them. They said, okay, so what do we do? I said, what we do, if it, pardon me, if it works for you guys, is I will read in my character in my own voice or a sort of tweaked version of the character so I don't hurt myself. And then when we get everybody done, they can all go home and I'll go back and read it, and really nail it. And then everybody will be happy, but I won't have had to do it, 3 or 4 times
Yeah.
for 3 or 4 hours. Uh, so how does that sound? Great. Now, nothing ever happened with the show. I think we did 13 episodes. It just didn't happen. but it wasn't because I couldn't do my job. It was because you sometimes you have a hit, sometimes you don't. But the producers were very receptive to that. In fact, one of the things they said at the beginning was, "Wow, does that hurt?" And it didn't hurt, but it wore me out.
Yeah.
So I have a couple characters like that. I did a character I just loved on a show called Fairly Odd Parents for Nickelodeon. Who is this alien surfer dude called Mark Chang from Yugopatamia? And everything he says, bro, is balls out. And I'm good for about an hour and a half. And
Yeah.
then I got a break. So the producers knew that. And when Mark showed up in an episode, they'd give me a couple of options and I would hammer it and then I was done. And they would allow me to record on a Friday so I could have Saturday and Sunday to recover. So there are all sorts of ways to do that. In the meantime, I drink a ton of water. You see me drinking it, and I'm always drinking it. I am very cognizant of which characters are particularly onerous on my voice, and I adjust my recording schedule accordingly with the people on the other side of the equation who are very kind and very willing to work with me, and not just me, young actors who don't have the same resume that I have because they're 28 years old. They can't. But it's never wrong to go to the people who have hired you to say, look, I really want to do this at the level you guys expect. But from a practical aspect, I need to have a little help. So before this gets to be a problem, let's talk about how I can best serve you. And everybody's fine with that. So that's what I do. But as you've been kind to allude to, that's different than getting clobbered with throat cancer. And that's what happened
Yes.
a bit later in my life. So that was a bit of a curveball.
Yeah. So I was going to chat about your book, which is called Voice Lessons, um, which looks fantastic, and it's a bit like a memoir, I presume. Don't worry, I will be buying a copy. Don't you
No
worry.
problem.
And obviously, in 2016, you was hit with something that literally not only it's career stopping but also life stopping. If you could just give the audience out there a bit of an insight of what actually happened to you in 2016.
Thank you so much. That is the best part of our chat because we never know, Brian, when your kindness in allowing me to have this opportunity will inspire someone else who had no idea either who I am or what I'm about. And it doesn't matter. But if they hear that this guy, whom they've grown up listening to, had throat cancer a few years ago, and he's now back doing his job at the same high level, that will help someone whom they love say, oh my God, Uncle John, this guy, you didn't know that this is who he, but this guy had the same kind of cancer you've been diagnosed with. And
Mm,
he's okay. And he makes his living doing this. You got to hear this guy. Okay, that's why this is important. And I really,
mm.
really cannot thank you enough for this opportunity. But yeah, 5 years ago, yeah, Jesus, right at this time, uh, I had a lump on the left side of my neck that was, if I'd put your hand on it, you'd said, "Whoa, dude!" It wasn't
Mm.
a goiter, but you could have felt it. Um, I am an athlete, hockey player, not a professional, but I'm always in good shape. I work out, all that stuff, like a millions of people. So typically, as a guy, unless something is hanging off or I'm bleeding profusely, I generally don't go to the doctor except for my yearly physical. So that was the case here. I'd had this lump for months, checked it out online. It could have been cancer. It also could have been a low grade infection. And that's what I chose to believe. Didn't hurt, didn't keep me from doing my job. I wasn't tired, had no trouble eating, all of that. I wasn't losing weight. So I went to my doctor for my yearly physical. I said, "What do you think about this?" In 5 seconds, he said, "No, I don't think so. It's not good, Rob." And I thought he was messing with
Mm.
me. And he said, "No, that's not good. I need you to go see an ear, nose, and throat doc yesterday." And so I did. And within about 10 days, after several biopsies and a lot of chats and blood tests and all that. It was found to be stage 3 metastatic squamous cell carcinoma. It was at the base of my tongue. The area that I'd felt in my neck was the area to which the cancer had already spread. So it was not good. However, it was not something that could not be treated effectively uh, if I got on it. And I was told that it was a relatively slow moving cancer. And when I was told what the treatment regimen would be, and that, Mr. Paulsen, we're virtually sure we can cure you, not remission, cure you. But before we do, we almost have to kill you. It's pretty rough. With your mouth, your throat, and what we're doing now. It's going to render you unable to, do certain things for a while, not
Mm.
permanent, but it's tough. Um, and fortunately, it's a slow moving cancer. It is staged 3. It has already spread, but we've got this. But you got to get on it. So once I heard that, and once I read a little bit, I thought, okay, well, let me ask some more questions, which I utterly encourage people to do. There's never a stupid question and a wrong time to ask it. Um, I said, well, I'm 60. What do you mean by slow moving? Uh, can I keep this at bay and then, at 82 years old, I'm kind of done? And they said, oh, no, no. Slow moving means that we've got it now. Year and a half, 2 years from now, you're going to really be in distress. And 4 years from now, you'll be dead. So you and I would not have been having this conversation because I would have been dead for a
Wow.
year. Um, so I said, oh, okay, that's what you mean by slow moving. So I jumped in. My wife, my son, who's married and obviously there for me in ways that I could never thank them enough for. Um, but it was all about, okay, put your head down and deal with it. Uh, I was told we're going to be able to cure you. You're going to be fine. You will be able to speak. Can you do it and manipulate your voice the same way you used to? I don't know. But frankly and respectfully, our job is not to save your career. That's your business. Our job is to save your life. And whatever happens after that is also your business. Um, uh, and so I didn't feel bad about it. I didn't think, oh my God, why me? Couldn't I have gotten toe cancer? I didn't look at it that way.
Yeah.
No one gets out of here without a couple of dings, Brian. Nobody.
Yeah.
You know people have had cancer. I'm so sorry. You may know people who've lost to it. I'm no different. Um, Even if the doctors had said to me, um, "You better get your things in order and go home. We'll keep you comfortable, but it's you're done. The treatment is useless. You're going to feel worse, and you're going to die anyway." And that's not what they told me. But even if they had, I
Mm.
was 60. You were kind enough to list, my credits, my background, my awards, all that stuff. I've been married to the same woman for 30 years. I have a wonderful son who's married and healthy. I've been able to touch millions of people, including your sweet baby. How
Yes.
wonderful, how lucky am I? I had nothing about which to be sad. Nothing.
Mm.
Uh, but that's not what they told me. They said it's going to be hard and you have to suck it up a little bit, but not as hard as having to go through it with your child. Not as hard
Mm.
as getting a phone call about your 5-year-old who has a brain tumor who they don't think is going to see their 7th birthday. And that happens every single day in
Mm.
the UK and in the US.
Yeah.
Right now, someone is getting that phone call. God forbid.
Mm.
Um, so all I had to do was get through it. And not only did I get through it, I'm able to do my job at the same level as I was before. And now I don't have a circumstance in which people say, man, Rob Paulsen sure sounds good as Pinky for a guy that had throat cancer a couple of years ago and a pile of radiation and chemo, and he lost 50 pounds and got some side effects. But wow, he sounds pretty good for a guy who had cancer. no one says that because I didn't tell them.
Yeah.
They know
Yeah.
now. But what they say is, wow, Mr. Spielberg was right. Rob hasn't lost a step. And they don't even know that I had cancer. That's the story. That's the story in terms of helping others. And you, my friend, have given me another glorious opportunity to access this platinum lining of my cancer experience because Animaniacs is a hit again. That's great. I'm getting paid. I'm loving it. But the bottom line is that because I had throat cancer, Brian, because you're kind enough to let me talk about it, because I have a book, and because I can point to characters that people love all over the world that were great 25 years ago and they're great now post cancer. What an opportunity to help people and inspire them.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's why this is important. And I really appreciate you asking me.
And what was the experience like writing that book? Looking back on your experience, through the good and the bad, and
Mhm.
now, you're revived. You're back to doing what you do best. I mean, what was that experience like, sitting down and actually putting pen to paper?
Well, I have to give all the credit, and it's not false modesty. The credit goes to Mike Fleeman, my co-writer. He really wrote the book. Um, I didn't realize because, like I said, I'm good at my job, but I'm smart enough now to know what I'm not smart at, and that's why I love asking questions. And I'm
Mm,
always, I never, never, never want to lose that ability to be uh, enchanted or to be amazed, to say, "Wow, check this out." Yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, but check this out. Well, Rob, you're really excited. Yeah, but I've never seen this. This is great, right? I don't want to lose that. Um, when my friend Mike started creating the way in which we're going to tell my story, I thought, this is genius. He's going to incorporate my characters talking to me about cancer and me breaking the news to Pinky in Pinky's voice on the audio version that I've got cancer. And how does Pinky respond to that? And I had to think about that. And it turned out to be a wonderful way to tell the story. Uh, so it was both enervating and invigorating, but also difficult to go over it, to kind of be sadly grateful that my parents weren't alive to watch me go through that. It would have
mm,
killed them, no pun intended. It
mm,
would have. It would
mm,
kill me if I had to watch my sweet boy go through that. I don't care how
mm.
old he gets. He's
Yeah.
36 now. But if I'm still around when he's 60, I don't want to watch my baby boy go through that. It's
Yeah.
horrible. Um, and so there was a lot that was difficult to recount when I was in that mindset and in the moment of going to sleep for 2, 3 days at a time and just waking up to take more pain medication.
Mm,
Um, and having those moments thinking, oh my God, I can't even embrace getting through this the next day. And they're talking about doing Animaniacs again. Who am I kidding? That that was really hard on a
mm,
personal note. But my buddy Mike Fleeman found a really wonderful way to tell my story. It's powerful. It has nothing to do with Rob being a celebrity. It is about the joy that those characters elicit in millions of people every day. But in my case, they elicited the joy and the laughter I needed to get through it. And I
mm.
never knew that those characters, and moreover, seeing what happens when I start doing Pinky to my new friend Brian. Look what happens to your face. When
Yeah.
I know that happens to millions of people, it really allowed me, seriously, authentically true, to have the courage to press on. Because there were times when I thought, pardon me, I can do this another day.
Mm,
Really hard. And it is for thousands of people who go through it.
yeah.
But I had the benefit of being reminded what lives right here and right here, not only in me, but millions of other people.
Mm,
And If I couldn't get through it then, knowing the joy and laughter that I had at you know to call up at any moment, then I was never going to get through it. And it was the public and and the and knowing what those characters are about that gave me, seriously, honest to God, gospel truth, gave me the juice to get through it. 100% true. And now I get to thank people. I get to go back and say, thank you for listening to Pinky. Thank you for Raphael and thank you for paying attention. It's not about money. It's not about ratings. It's not about an autograph. It is about a pure expression of joy and laughter and kindness and inclusion. And it turns out, Brian, that all those qualities, like love, come from the
Hmm.
most unexpected places. And I'm a living example of it. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the opportunity to share that whole experience. It's fantastic.
Do you know what? It's just fascinating, and I'm so glad that you battled with it and you made it do one and go away. And as you said, there are people out there that are suffering. Um,
Yes.
but I've got to say, your shows and your voices are going to bring joy to many, many people. And you know what? You need to contact Steven Spielberg. Because I just had a thought in my head. Wouldn't it be wonderful to do like a biopic film of you, Rob, and then have animation mixed with live action, and those characters are in your mind, and you're having
Well,
that conversation with yourself
we
through.
have a video now of you, you know, intellectual property. You're
There
the
we
guy who got
go.
the idea. Thank you very much, Brian. I think we should call it Pinky and the Brian. Nerve. Um, Uh, well, that is profoundly kind of you. And you know what? I have learned never to say never because for years after Animaniacs became an unqualified success around the world, and I had sung for maybe the 300th time, United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru. And every time I sing it with music, without, people lose their minds.
Yeah,
And it's because of my friend Randy Rogel and his incredible songwriting skill. That is a genius 2.5 minute cartoon. It really is. Um, but I've learned, but people would say after that, at interviews or autograph signings, oh my God, I've heard they're rebooting certain. Can you imagine what would happen if Animaniacs was rebooted? What do you think? Do you think that's possible? And I thought, nah, we've been there, we've done that. We're on to other things, and it will always be something that changed my life for the better. But I'm on to other stuff, and thank God for things like Hulu and Netflix, where we can watch things like all at once, and all Animaniacs are available, like just like Ninja Turtles and all these other shows I've worked on. They're all available on YouTube or wherever. I'm so grateful. Thank you for saying that, but I don't think that's going to happen. Well,
do you know what?
little I know. So I never, ever will say never again. And I really, firstly, thank you for this opportunity, but thank you for thinking that that story is worthy of Mr. Spielberg and telling it. And that's very
It'll
kind
be
of you,
awesome.
Brian. Who
It'll
knows?
Who knows? Rob, listen, you've been a great guest. I'm going to shut the interview down because you know what? I know that you're a very busy man, and I don't want to take any much more of your precious time. But you know what, Rob? It's been an absolute pleasure and an honour. And this is definitely going to be a tick off my bucket list of interviews that I've had. And do you know what? I could chat to you for hours about loads of things. To be honest, I've got about 40 odd questions left because I thought, do you know what? We'll see how it goes. But do you know what? I'll let you get on with your day. It's been a fantastic opportunity. All the best for the future. And your book is available everywhere. So I urge everyone to grab a lovely copy of the book. What is next for you before we wrap this interview? What are you doing at the moment? Can you say, or is it all top secret?
Can well, we were picked up for our third season of Animaniacs on Hulu. We
Awesome.
haven't even aired the second one yet, so that portends good things. I am fingers crossed, plan on being in hopefully 2 different conventions in the UK,
Wow.
either late this year or early next year, once we get through COVID con. And to find out about those things, people can follow me on social media on Twitter at Yakko Pinky, all one word, lowercase YAKKO on Twitter, Yakko Pinky. Instagram is Rob_Paulsen, Paulsen. TikTok, Rob Paulsen, 311. That's my birthday. Facebook, Rob Paulsen, voice actor. And I had a very successful podcast that I've kind of put on hold for the last couple of years called Talkin' Tunes, TALKIN apostrophe TOONS. All the old episodes of which are available on Spotify. But I literally this week, apart from your kind chat, have been interviewing or chatting with 5 different podcast networks about bringing it back.
Awesome.
So it's coming back, and I'm so excited about it. And it's really good, not because of me, but because I can call on my phone. I can call Mark Hamill or Jim Cummings, who's Winnie the Pooh, or Bart, Simpson, who's Nancy Cartwright. And that's what we did, and people love it. So that's coming back. And I have so much cool stuff that's going on, both in person, autographing things online. I have technology now where people can send me their favorite action figure or their favorite Ninja Turtle pillowcase from 1990, and I can sign it for them online. So to authenticate it. So check that out on my social media stuff. There's lots of cool stuff coming. But I want to give you something. What is your sweet baby girl's name?
Cara. It's
Cara.
Cara and Lois.
Oh,
Cara and
Cara,
Lois.
and they both like Animaniacs?
They do.
Okay. So this is how we're going to end the show. So this is for Cara and Lois. Hello, Cara and Lois. Greetings from the water tower. Yakko is going to sing you a brand new verse of Yakko's World, where all the new countries that have sprung up since the original was written, and you've seen me sing that. But here is a new lyric, which includes the new countries. And this is for my new friends, Brian and your mommy, and Cara and Lois. Well, not Brian's mommy, but Cara. You see what? Well, her mommy, all of you. Okay? Here it goes. And it goes like this. It goes, ahem. Montenegro and Bosnia, Herzegovina, the Soviet Union is gone. South Africa, Georgia, Moldova, Latvia, Belarus, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, hey, Kazakhstan, hey, then the Tajikistan too, hey, Turkmenistan, hey, Kurdistan, Armenia, Tonga, Palau, Lithuania, Serbia, Kosovo, US, Samoa, the Balkans, Brunei, Macau and Crimea, then Eritrea, Ukraine and Estonia, here's Macedonia, New Caledonia, Eastern Slavonia, Ivory Coast and Cape Verde, Andorra, the Solomon Islands, Dubai. Goodbye.